Hello and welcome. Continuing with your comments and questions. The first comment, I've just highlighted the question within the overall comment here. I hope I don't leave anything important out, but my question, which I have never found an accurate answer to, is rebirth and afterlife. Your last video, you stated it's possible there may not be an afterlife. In other videos, you have stated a different opinion. So I may have explained the nature of rebirth in varying ways, as we all do as monks and as lay practitioners, trying to convey this conception, this idea, across to others. It can be difficult. That and the question of not self and what is reborn leads to many a long-winded explanations, often not leading to an answer, which is where you're coming from here, and you state at the end that you think it would be useful, and even for the betterment of Buddhism, if there was a more concise answer. Well, the reason there isn't a concise answer to what happens after death is because nobody actually knows. We can understand rebirth. So the concise answer is, well, rebirth is this. What it is you're experiencing right now. Life, existence. That is the result of causes and conditions, namely ignorance, avijja. It's avijja, ignorance, that leads to jati, which is birth. Ignorance of the characteristics of existence, of the characteristics of the universe, so life and the universe in which we live, being impermanent, unsatisfactory, and out of our control, or not self. The nature of karma, our actions, leading to results, vipaka. And this question itself of rebirth all comes into right view. Before we have right view, we are ignorant to those aspects, those characteristics of existence, including karma, and by our attachment, our ignorance to this existence, thinking we are of a permanent and substantial nature that goes on and on and on, we cling to it. There is attachment, as I spoke of in the last talk. That's ignorance. It leads to rebirth. Now, we look through the practice to eradicate greed, hatred and delusion, ignorance in that case, which doesn't mean avijja, ignorance, necessarily a lack of knowledge, but like delusion, a lack of common sense, a lack of practical application of that intellectual learning to the realities of life, or the understanding of the realities of life, that we are all aging, sickening and dying from the moment of birth. But if we cling to this life, we're creating, setting up the causes and conditions for rebirth. So that's the basis of rebirth. As for afterlife, there is no afterlife. You say I stated it is possible there may not be an afterlife. There is rebirth as a result of not coming to fully understand within this lifetime, therefore eradicating delusion or ignorance, and still there being clinging remaining, we have set up the causes and conditions for that rebirth. Now the ultimate goal is to free ourselves, cut all of the fetters or ties to mortal existence, or even becoming and aspiring to heavenly realms of existence. All desires of that nature being eradicated free us from the cycle of rebirth, and therefore free us from any potential afterlife, which it would be just another rebirth. So as you can see in those two words being explained, in that context, it's clear that rebirth is the result of ignorance, as is any afterlife. With the eradication of ignorance, or specifically greed, hatred and delusion, there is no afterlife. There is freedom from life as we know it through the attainment to Nibbana, cessation. This is outside, external, not a part of this conditioned existence, not part of the five aggregates of rupa, body, vedana, feelings, sanya, perception or recollection, sankhara, mental formations, and vijnana, sense consciousness. That is life, that is existence. On extinguishment of those fetters, those ties, so attainment to arahantship, with all fetters eradicated, all links, all ties to birth, to existence, to becoming, in whatever realm, we are freed from that cycle of rebirth. To describe Nibbana is not something we can do. It doesn't come in to the conceptual understanding of existence. There are no words. Similarly to trying to describe the colour yellow without comparison is impossible. There is no comparison. It is not Nibbana of this conditioned world. If you call it an afterlife, it's mistitled in that it isn't life. It's cessation of life and the cycle of rebirth. What is boredom? So boredom is wanting things to be other than they are. Being unable to accept things just as they are, as it is, knowing what we have is just that. As long as you're wanting to be somewhere else, be something else, have something else, or not to be something, not to be becoming something, not to be experiencing something that you are. So either sensual desire for something or ill will, aversion against some situation, as long as that exists, there is a state of dukkha, suffering, that can manifest in varying ways. Frustration, anger, or anxiety, sadness, depression. But when we have practiced, when we fully come to understand the nature of existence, anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and everything being out of our control, and we've led lives of a renunciant nature, just to some degree, even in lay life as lay practitioners, just giving up the odd thing, that extra sugar in your coffee, or that extra shot of coffee in your coffee, whatever it may be. Just making do with a little less of something you're used to having habitually is a form of renunciation too, and can lead to enormous levels of satisfaction. When you successfully give up an addiction, it's very satisfying. More satisfying than the addiction was in itself, which was, after all, only trying to satisfy a craving which is insatiable. It cannot be satisfied. The more you try and satisfy that craving, the more fuel to the fire of desire you're adding, and therefore perpetuating that cycle of addiction. We put in a break there. We stop that cycle of addiction, whether it's to a substance or to life itself, by seeing it clearly. We have a word for that, vipassana. So this practice of meditation develops that quality of seeing clearly, vipassana, through the development of peaceful, calm states of mind, tranquility, otherwise called samatha in the Pali language. I'm using some Pali words today, but hopefully I'm backing each and every one of those up with the English translation of those words. And knowing that, with that peaceful state of mind, we appreciate that renunciation. We come to enjoy it, and this is the practice. Enjoying it, its happiness, developing contentment. Because contentment is the condition of not just acceptance, but accepting joyfully the way it is. It's just that. And being able to abide in that, live in that condition comfortably. And this generates happiness, contentment, where there is no boredom. So the question went on to say, do I get bored? And the answer is no. Because through renunciation, to the ultimate degree, really, I've, through experience or experientially, come to understand you cannot satisfy insatiable desires or cravings. Another Pali word for that word, cravings, tanha. But we can still have the desire, as is another separate Pali word, chanda, to keep practicing, keep putting in the effort to develop that quality of not only vipassana, seeing clearly, but the other qualities that come as a side effect, a very positive side effect of the practice. The qualities of metta, loving kindness, the qualities of karuna, compassion, mudita, joy for others specifically, so the opposite of jealousy, and upekkha, which is equanimity. And that is an overriding quality that gives us immense power to deal with whatever is going on in our surrounding environment and whatever comes up in our minds to distract us, disturb us, unsettle us. Face on, not hiding, but head on, face any difficulties as they arrive with equanimity, with understanding rather than reaction, with solutions rather than the building of problems. And it's just that. We find the antidote to what is boredom. And we ask ourselves, what is boredom? When we feel this feeling of boredom, ask ourselves, what is it? What is it I'm feeling? With all emotions, they have a corresponding physical feeling, vedana, feeling in the body. So locate it. How does it feel? Most of these feelings linked to aversion, from boredom, including anxiety, to fear, even depression, can be located also in the body, around this solar plexus area, the center of the torso here, as a kind of a light or butterfly feeling, an uncomfortable but not painful, just a feeling in the body. By locating that when emotions arise, or other similarly linked feelings, physical feelings linked to emotions, we put in that little break between the emotion itself and the reaction, giving ourselves pause for thought, not to contemplate, overthink a problem into a greater problem, but to see it as just not wanting something to be as it is and wanting something else, the opposite of contentment. When we have contentment, we don't get bored. And I noticed people walk past your dwelling. Do you get unexpected callers? No. Being that this is a Buddhist country, most people will see a monk when I'm sitting outside talking, and they'll walk on by. They may take their hats off or put their hands in Anjali as they walk by, but they wouldn't come and disturb me. Even if I'm just sitting and not talking, maybe I'm sitting on the veranda enjoying a cup of coffee or going through your comments, people won't disturb a monk, normally speaking. There are very rarely, where I'm living, any tourists or foreign visitors going past, usually only when they're lost. And then these days, they're usually too engrossed in their Google Maps or their smartphones, looking at something rather than the beautiful surroundings, sadly, to notice a little monk sitting there in a corner, so they wouldn't come to disturb me. But that's very seldom where I'm staying. It's a little off the beaten track, to say the least. So most of the passers-by you might see are the locals. They're my neighbours, the people in this surrounding little hamlet near a slightly bigger village. And they're the supportive structure living around me, as I hopefully am a part of their community and supportive back too. So they are familiar faces you might come to get used to. But currently, I'm recording these early in the morning, close to when I first awake. I wake up at 3 a.m. every day, so after a cup of coffee, rather than going into my meditation straight away, as I ordinarily do in the morning, prior to our morning chanting, short meditation and blessings at 6 a.m., I normally have a few hours to sit and meditate. But whilst the building work's going on at this very quiet, peaceful, and much cooler time of day, I think it's a great opportunity for me to continue with these talks just for the few days a week that I do that, to keep up to date with all of your comments and questions, and hopefully, as you inspire me with those, me too inspire you with discussion on those points. Does your sense of time change as you practice watching the breath? So the breath is a meditation object, and whatever your meditation object may be, if you're practicing meditation and developing samadhi, deep focused attention on one meditation object, and if it's the breath, then ultimately yes, with absorption of samadhi and leading to deeper absorption of jhanas, you are excluded from physical, sensual experience, as well as a lot of mental thinking. And it is the body and the thinking brain that comes up with this concept of time. In the chanting, we say the Dharma is ehipasiko akaliko, timeless in essence, timeless in that the Dharma is timeless, and the experience of not necessarily even enlightenment, but the experience of samadhi is timeless, which is why we set a timer for our meditation, in order that we are able to be alerted when our duties are coming up or when it's the right time to finish our meditation. But if you're fortunate like me, you can just meditate for most of the day. This isn't necessary. And the more we practice, also the less that is necessary. We have a kind of inbuilt clock anyway, subconsciously, which is why we often wake up without an alarm at the same time every day. I usually set an alarm just in case, but always wake up before the alarm goes off. So you can try that. It's a little experiment. Set your alarm, if you have to get up at 7 o'clock, you can set your alarm for just a few minutes after 7 o'clock, and then make a determination before you go to sleep to wake up at 7 o'clock. If you don't, the alarm will go off a few minutes afterwards, but you will. If you want to really reinforce that determination, just bang your head, tap your head on the pillow 7 times and say, I will wake up at 7 o'clock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Simple as that. It works. That's our inbuilt clock. But that's not a perception of time. You're not counting seconds or minutes or hours. So what you're just talking about, the question there, is a perception of time. So when you're meditating, it can seem at first, if you're in a forced environment, let's say you're on a meditation retreat and everybody has to meditate at 2 p.m. until 3 p.m. and you might not feel like it. That hour can seem like forever. Or other times you may be really enjoying meditation and the bell rings, boing. That's not a very good bell, is it? Ding. And wow, where did the time go? I mean, the key thing is there, when you're enjoying something, it goes quickly. When you're not, it goes slowly. It's just perception, isn't it? Time is the same. The only real sense of time we can measure is aging, sickness, and death. We're born, our bodies then immediately, having been born into life, which is a terminal illness. It ends. It is terminal. Life is terminal. The clock is ticking, tick, 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 tick. As you age, your body changes, deteriorates, or improves, however you perceive it. And this is the real sense of time. The trees, the seasons, the sun rising, the sun setting. We use the lunar calendar as monks. The next full moon, Uposita Day, coming up, they call in Sinhala, or in the Sinhalese language, in Sri Lanka here, they call it Poya Day. They celebrate mainly just the full moon day each month, rather than the new moon also on the Uposita Day. Monks, bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, we still have our Uposita Day, full moon and new moon duties. So that is the recitation of the Patimokkha, our rules. But lay people just have a celebration on the full moon. But it is a national holiday here. But it's a significant time marker. And we use that as our calendar. It sets the course of the year. So this Vasa, this 3 months rains retreat, began the full moon of July and will end the full moon of October. That's 3 lunar cycles, lunar months, representing another Vasa having passed. Whilst watching the breath, we can become very absorbed and not notice time at all. Be content, enjoy the experience, enjoy the meditation, and the bell rings before you know it. But if you're not content, you're bored, you're uncomfortable physically, you don't enjoy it, you're not content. And it seems a long time. But come to enjoy that. Enjoy the boredom, enjoy the discontentness, and that eradicates it. Really focus on what is this boredom? Where is it coming from? Where do I feel it? How is it? What is it the result of? It'll soon go, and then the time will fly. But whether it's perceived as moving quickly or slowly makes no difference. You're aging and sickening and dying at roughly and relatively the same rate as everyone else. So what does Bhante mean? Bhante is the Pali word for, the closest translation in English would be venerable. But it's just a term given to differentiate bhikkhus, monks, from lay practitioners, men. Bhante instead of Mr., if you like. So it's not an honorific title of any sense. Some people might consider it to be. And here they use a term which translates as reverend, because they call monks often priests. But that's coming from their long tradition and influence of Catholicism, which came to this country with the Portuguese a long time ago. But it's not a meaningful word in that context. It's just a word that's become used by way of convention. Whereas Bhante is internationally recognized, universal, and therefore impartial, but is an identifier. And we often have, after the name, the title, or prefix is the word I'm looking for, the prefix Bhante, we have a long Pali name. Some of them are short or shortened. Mine is Dharmarakita, for instance. Well, that's a bit of a mouthful. You're not going to want to keep addressing someone as Dharmarakita, or Venerable Dharmarakita, or Bhante Dharmarakita. So Bhante becomes a short addressing form. So like, oi, mate, or oi, mister. You say, oi, hope not, but oi, Bhante is a way of addressing all monks. Monks between themselves, if a monk is more senior, we call them Bhante. If they are more junior, and this isn't a hierarchical thing of superiority, it is just how many vasas you've lived in the robes, you've experienced in the robes, how many years you've been a monk, basically. It's just some way of having an order of priorities. For instance, in the alms, in the dinner queue, what am I looking at? When one's going to collect food, where the food is already laid out, or if you're on alms round, we need to have some way of sitting in order, walking in order, standing in order. So we have that, how many vasas that we have. So a monk of 10 vasas goes before a monk of 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and so on and so forth. So a monk of 10 vasas we would address as Bhante. If we were 9 vasas, a monk of 8 vasas we call avuso, which is the Pali word of which the English closest equivalent is brother or friend. But brother like in brother as in the English word used for monks. So I went to a school of Catholic monks as a child, as a teenager even, and we addressed them as brother. Brother Francis, Brother Paul, Brother John, and so on. Not father, not reverend, but brother, because they were monks. So they renounced, by their own ordination, in Catholicism, they renounced honorific titles too. We didn't call them honourable brother, or venerable brother, or reverend brother. We just called them brother. They're brothers together. So we're Bhante or Avuso. It's an addressing term. I think I've answered this about, do you not feel pressured doing all the recordings? No, there's not very many really. 3 recordings like this each week. And that takes as long as it takes for you to watch them. There's no preparing, there's no preparation, and there's no editing afterwards. So it's literally just a case of sitting here talking as we are. You send in the comments and questions that I read, or sometimes I just talk. And then after that time has expired, it's uploaded to YouTube, done, finished. Each morning, the live chanting, meditation and blessings at 6 a.m, I just turn the camera on, and when it's finished, turn the camera off again. No preparation, nothing to do afterwards. It happens automatically. That's the magic and beauty these days of this modern format and YouTube. So we can be grateful for that, and it doesn't get in the way of my practice or my day at all. In fact, it helps me address your comments and questions more effectively, I think, than if I was trying to write long-winded answers to each and every person, which might then result in chains or trees, what do you call them, strings of conversation, which wouldn't necessarily always be useful. Debate can soon digress into argument, can't it? Deteriorate, rather, into argument. Is there a video on the day in the life of Bhante D? No. Well, there's some videos, I think, called that, if you search, which show some parts of my day, yes. So, in answer to that question, I think yes, if you search that in YouTube, you'll find that. But they're very short, because my day isn't very interesting for someone to watch on YouTube. I'm doing nothing, I'm meditating. So it would be a very uninspiring thing to watch. It might inspire some, watching someone just sitting there with their eyes closed. But it would entail, a lot of data in uploading it for no particular reason. But if someone was here and following me around filming for a day, then something like that would be made, yes. But without that, I wouldn't be carrying on my ordinary day if I was trying to film it myself. Like I just said, for these talks, I turn the camera on, turn it off at the end, that's it. But going on Pindapata, there is a talk, a video of that, where somebody followed me and filmed it. And that's as best as it will get. And but hopefully I describe my day enough. I wake up at 3, I meditate, at 6 a.m, there's the short chanting, meditation and blessings. At 6:30, I go on arms round, Pindapata, usually returning here by about 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. So I'm gone for over an hour. And then after getting things ready, distributing all the surplus food, which I just put on a table outside of my kuti, on trays for people to collect when they're ready. They're usually there and waiting. I sit down at 8:30 for my meal, eat my meal, finishing that by no later than really 10 to 9, quarter to 9, 10 to 9, 9 o'clock at the very latest. and then just after clearing up the meal, after which I'm free for the rest of the day. Usually around late morning, I might look at your comments and emails, quickly respond to those. That takes no more than an hour at the very most. Then in the afternoon at around 3 o'clock, time for a cup of tea, a break in meditation, a cup of tea, maybe a few chores, a bit of sweeping around the place. And then it's, before you know it, 6 o'clock evening, and meditation. The evening's cooler. It's nice to just sit in peace and quiet, much like it is now at this time. It's now around 4 a.m. And then until I fall asleep, usually at around 10, 11 o'clock these days. So I've become quite relaxed here. I used to try and stay up meditating until midnight, but waking up at 3 hours is, well, it's pushing it a little bit. So 10, 11 o'clock's about the latest that's comfortable in these weather conditions without having any sleep during the day. I think it's probably in these weather conditions normal and acceptable for people to have a little sleep during the hottest hours of the day, around midday, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. So I don't do that. I like to keep awake throughout the day and reserve sleep for the night time. So that would be my day, really. That's as I describe it. What books should I read to better understand Theravada Buddhism and Buddhism in general? Buddhism in general. Try and understand, yes, Buddhism in general. Rather than getting too, if you're just looking to find out about Buddhism, you'll need to know about the different traditions, but don't let that cloud your view, don't let that confuse you. So the basic books on Buddhism itself, I would begin with the chanting book. The chanting book is very useful. There is a chanting book I can send you a link to, which isn't just chanting. It isn't a sing-song or a nursery rhyme book or a hymn book. These are valuable reflections on what the Buddha teaches us and summaries of valuable teachings, the Dharma from the Buddha, the suttas, are all contained in a summary form in that chanting book, and an easily and more easy to read and even memorize form, both in the Pali language and English language, if that's your mother tongue. Otherwise, find a chanting book in your mother tongue with Pali also. It then also helps you learn all these useful Pali words like dukkha, anicca, dukkha, anatta, so impermanence, suffering, and not self. The reason we like to learn these useful Pali words is not for the sake of learning another language, but like the word Bhante, they're commonly used universally throughout Buddhism worldwide. So wherever you go as a Buddhist, you'll have some understanding as to what everyone's talking about, what is going on, what is happening, by just those simple Pali words. They're common throughout Buddhism, whatever tradition. Other than the northern schools, which are the Sanskrit language, but it's very similar. So you'll still pick out the salient points. And in Sri Lanka, a lot of their language is made up of the Pali language. So even some of their Sinhala words come from the Pali, as well as English and Sanskrit, just to make it a little bit more confusing. But the first book would be, the chanting book. Or the book of devotional practices is the one I've been sending out most recently, which is from my own organisation, the Mahabodhi Society of Bangalore. Our teacher's translation of the chanting and the devotional practices, which comes from the origins or the Pali origins of Sri Lanka and their practice, and I find more useful for my practice and understanding of their rituals here, but is more universally understood than the other chanting book, which was more Thailand or Thai orientated towards their own specific cultural practice or forms of practice. In the Thai forest tradition, where I was trained and from which I come originally, although I ordained into monastic life in India under the Mahabodhi Society Theravada tradition. So that's a useful book. The Dhammapada is sayings, quotes, poetic verses coming straight from the suttas, but put in a very readable and accessible form and chaptered into subject matters. Very easy way to get a good summary of the Dharma, summary of the Buddha's teachings, summary of the Sutta Pitaka, an entire huge volume of books, collection of discourses, teachings, Dharma talks from the Buddha offered to his disciples, and some of those talks from those disciples offered to fellow brethren and lay practitioners, all summarized in this beautiful book called the Dhammapada, also translated by the founder of my own ordaining organisation, the Mahabodhi Society, Bhante G. Buddharakkhita, whom translates not only that, the Dhammapada and many other books, but those are the two I would use as a reference point. And then finally, The Word of the Buddha by Bhante Nyanatiloka, which I've spoken about recently, having just visited his island hermitage, his island monastery, where a lot of that book, those ideas for that book were conceived, where he lived and practiced for many years. A German in Sri Lanka who wrote a brilliant summary of what Buddhism is, the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, and what that leads to, and how that manifests. So they're the three books: the chanting book, the Dhammapada, and the Word of the Buddha. When you want to get a little bit more advanced, Bhante Nyanatiloka's disciple Bhante Nyanamoli, in his lineage they're all Nyana something, N-Y-A-N. So Nyanamoli wrote a book which is a much larger volume. The Word of the Buddha is a small booklet really, but a much larger book called The Life of the Buddha. I think it's called that. And that is not just about the life of the Buddha, but an expansion on the previous book, The Word of the Buddha, really. And he was the disciple of Bhante Nyanatiloka. So that's a logical progression. But of course, the real reading, and where all of those books are coming from, are the suttas, the collection of discourses, the words of the Buddha himself, that were written down not so long after the parinibbana of the Buddha, and are very accurate interpretations of what he would have said, might have said, translated into now many languages that we can understand. They take some getting used to read because of their repetitive nature, but ultimately we should look to read those main books in the Sutta Pitaka, beginning perhaps with the middle-length discourses, the Majjhima Nikaya. But don't get too involved in book reading. The book you should be reading is this fathom-length bag of skin containing horrible things. This body is going to teach us everything about physical feelings, how they relate to our emotions. It's this seeing clearly, vipassana, developing that quality through mindfulness of the body, always coming back to the body for our answers, which is where we truly learn, truly get an understanding of the Dharma. But these three books I mentioned, chanting book, Dhammapada, and the Word of the Buddha, are a really good start to put it all into perspective and give you a good understanding of the core teachings of the Buddha. Where do you currently... Lots of people ask me where I live in Sri Lanka. Well, you can look up English Buddhist Monk on on Google Maps, if you want the precise location. There are some pictures on there even. And presumably when the Samadhi Sala, the new meditation hall, is finished, they can put some pictures of that on there too. At the moment it's just my kuti. But the place is called Bentota on the southwest coast of Sri Lanka. And my name is, you're asking my name, does it mean? Is there a special meaning behind it? I spoke about that yesterday, Dharma Rakita, didn't I? Protected by the Dharma. Now, could I give a serious talk on the unpleasant... I'll read this question in full because you answer it. I'll start again, excuse me. Please, a good serious talk on the unpleasant but reality of aging of the body and how investing in the appearance and believing that one must appear younger is a fool's game, and that aging is not bad or wrong but normal. There you have it. There is the talk. There is the serious talk on the unpleasant but reality of aging of the body. Aging, sickness and death. You've summed it up. That's as much as we can say. Now, my question is, where is there a talk here where I don't talk about that? Now, I will go a bit further to say, your question is in relation to, I think, what do we call it? Now, I've forgotten. Social media. And people's impressions of what they should look like and maintaining youthful appearances and a lot of comparison. And yes, it can be closely associated with social media in this modern age. But again, like I think I spoke about yesterday or recently, this isn't a new thing. The Buddha speaks of intoxication of youth, and I couldn't think of the sutta, and probably the reason being there's at least three suttas where he specifically mentions the intoxication of youth, meaning that whilst intoxicated, that's it, being not mindful, but our minds clouded by our fitness of youth, physical fitness, our beauty of youth, aesthetic appearance. We are not mindful of the fact that we are aging, sickening and dying. We're intoxicated by fitness and beauty. This is the mistake. This is the fool's game, as you call it. Trying to maintain appearance by whatever means is ridiculous. It's like trying to stop the tide from coming in. You cannot do it. You will age. Now, in Asia, it's common, and still common, I think, for people to try using very expensive creams and all manner of potions to whiten their skin. And where I come from, it was, I don't know whether it is still, but it used to be very common for people to try and darken their skin, to get tans by whatever means, whether it's creams or machines or the sun, harming themselves really, to darken their skin. So this is perception, another fool's game, a ridiculous notion when you think about it. Black people trying to get white, white people trying to get black, if you're allowed to even say that, I don't know. But lighten your skin or darken your skin because you perceive it as more aesthetically appealing to others. It is crazy. It is a fool's game. But the practice we're doing is coming to realize that, and through the slow and gradual process of letting go of attachment to the body, you'll let it age gracefully and naturally. and even see beauty in age. Cuteness in these kittens whom have now grown up and are big brutes of boys. And the beauty in this, I don't know whether you can see Rosie, she's a more aged cat with all her lumps and bumps and saggy bits. But she's no less beautiful, as my little Sri Lankan friend there. It's all beauty is in the eye of the beholder. People know all of these expressions. What it all boils down to is a whole commercial game. The fool's game, a commercial game. People making a lot of money, forever young. There's the snake oil doctor, they used to call him, something like that. The man who goes around selling everlasting life, a cure for everything, a no aging cream. Think of the money that is made out of no aging creams and such like. The airport lounges that I go through on my visa runs occasionally, the bit I have to, not the airport lounge, the bit I have to walk through quickly to get to where I sit and wait for the plane. It smells wonderful sometimes, sickening other times, of perfumes and all kinds of things to make our inherently unpleasant smelling bodies smell nice. And if you look around, I'm sure there are many creams, devices, potions to try and stop the aging process. And maybe some of them do slow the wrinkling process down, I don't know. But in the context of things, it's a drop in the ocean. You're still aging, sickening, and dying. However much cream you put on your face, it's not going to help you in the coffin, where you'll see the corpse. We have, as monks, the fortunate, and it is fortunate, opportunity to go and look at dead bodies quite often. And you also meet those people before they die. And you see the strain and anguish in their faces and facial expressions, where a lot of these wrinkles come from. Some of them are laughter lines, aren't they? We have smiles and laughter lines. We call wrinkles. They should be positive, shouldn't they? But when people are dying, their faces are tense. You can see the pain in their facial expression. But after their death, laying there, dead, their faces become peaceful. It's not just a cliche. They look at peace. Once you close their eyes, you see the skin is relaxed. Even to the feel, its touch is firm and cold. But the wrinkles have lessened considerably. The tension behind the wrinkles that is causing them is gone. So we have a cure to that appearance in death, don't we, there? Even some of the fat and the flab we're trying to fight, when you're laying there on the slab, it has no real problem. It's just flattens out like a big blancmange. But that's how we'll all end up in death. The body is doing nothing. It's just elements beginning to decay. And yes, they'll embalm the body a little, put some makeup on the body a little to make it look a little bit more attractive again. But different cultures treat the dead in different ways. In some cultures, they leave them exactly as they were, the position that they died in. In others, they straighten them all out, embalm them, put makeup on them, dress them in their best clothes. It's perception. Its beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And I think on that note, I should now perhaps bring this little questions and answer session to a close and hope that it's useful to you. If so, please use it in your own practice. If not, just let it go and don't worry about it. Until next time, be happy and stay well. and Sukhi Hotu.